Hello, this is cannedcream, CC for short, and today I'd like to talk to you about a topic that I don't think is getting the proper amount of attention in the MLP universe. And that's, why the buck is there so much mind control magic?
All glory to the Hypnotoad!
Seriously, it's everywhere, and such a disturbing amount that I have to do an entire episode on it. We can barely go a season without some pony's mind and emotions being toyed around with. I would like to talk about every instance in turn, but if I try to do that, then we'd have to schedule some intermissions and bathroom breaks because we would be here all night. For the sake of your time and my sanity, let's just quickly cover the spectrum. And for funsies, let's start with the one that, frankly, unsettled me the most. In a Camelot wedding, we see Twilight have a flashback to a young Princess Cadence, using her magic to instantly make a fighting couple fall back in love again. What deeply troubled me about this is that it's shown as being an okay thing. She completely altered the way these two ponies felt about each other. She messed with their very brains, and this was played off as being no big deal. Yeah, those two were fighting, and that's a terrible thing, but that fight was their fight to have. That was their choice brought on by their own free will. Cadence had no right to screw with that. She had no idea who those ponies were, what their lives had been like, or even if they were a good match for one another. Maybe they would have been better apart. We will never know that because Cadence made the snap decision to just completely alter their emotions and their minds. I cannot be the only one this kind of frightens. The closest we ever came to admitting that screwing around with someone else's head is super wrong was in Lesson 0. Lesson 0. I'm gonna get back to that one later. I find it a little disturbing just how commonplace mind control is in the MLP world. There are so many different interpretations and means of using it throughout Equestria that it might as well be its own school of magic. Even Fluttershy has the power to alter minds, a power that she personally admits to having no control over.
Did you use the stare on her? Oh no, I wouldn't. I couldn't. I don't really have any control over when that happens. It just happens.
I will admit, in some cases, the mind control does kinda make sense to have. More specifically, the cases of Chrysalis and Discord. In Chrysalis's case, the changelings feed off of love, so it would be naturally built to do whatever it took to become the recipient of another creature's love. Not only by taking on the physical shape of someone that they care for, but probably also having the ability to manipulate that other creature's emotions. Changelings, I think, would work in a similar way to the Ardok Yakshi in the Mass Effect world. Being able to slowly indoctrinate their victims so they become a willing food supply for as long as the changelings want it. And in Discord's case, reality is pretty much his to bend to his will. There's no reason that pony minds would really be any different. Though with him, it's really more of a game. It's about tricking the pony into accepting his will rather than straight up forcing mind control. Unless you're able to resist him, apparently, then it's screw the rules, I have magic. And then there's the magic that King Sombra uses to protect the location of the Crystal Heart. The one who makes whomever tries to go through the door go into a trance and live through their worst nightmares. And while the show doesn't say one way or another what happens if the pony isn't broken out of the spell, I think it can be assumed that the magic would not wear off on its own. That pony would be sitting there in front of that door, living in a self-made hell until their bodies withered away from hunger. Wow, this episode's got a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. What freaks me out is that Twilight, of all ponies, knows a mind control spell. Twilight freaking Sparkle can, at any point of her choosing, completely and utterly F with your brain. At some point in her life, Twilight came across the one it needed spell, saw what it did, and made the conscious decision to learn it. And we know how methodical Twilight is, how important it is for her to master every piece of magic she comes across. Hell, she's even willing to read an unknown, unfinished spell by Star Swirl aloud without any possible idea of what it could do. When has reading an unknown incantation aloud ever had a good outcome? To me, this means at some point she had to have tested this spell, either on her family or some unsuspecting pony. There is no way that the methodical Twilight Sparkle did not make absolutely sure she had this spell down packed. In Lesson 0, I told you we were coming back to this again. In Lesson 0, we get to see her unleash this magic upon 3 innocent children, an effect that only cascades until half the frickin' town is under her spell. And she is never punished for this. It is barely mentioned afterwards. The epilogue of the episode isn't about Twilight's BSOD under the pressure and unleashing a mind control spell over the entire town that she could not stop nor control. It's instead about trying to understand your friend's worries and concerns even when they don't make sense to you. Which, I admit, that is a very good lesson. But not compared to this. Your future Alicorn princess, ladies and gentlemen. The power of this brain rape magic goes all the way up to Celestia herself, who in Keep Calm and Flutter On mentions having a reform spell that she'll use on Discord to rein him in if he gets too out of hand. Does not directly mention exactly what the spell would do, going off the fact that Celestia needs his magic strongly enough to risk unleashing him again. The implications point to controlling his brain. Discord is basically a chaotic god, yet Celestia has a magic powerful enough to control even him. If you think about that, if Celestia has that kind of power, then who's to say she hasn't already used it? If she could possibly control the embodied spirit of chaos, is it also possible that she could control the minds of an entire kingdom? What if everything we know about Equestria's history is a lie? The creators have already assured us that alicorns like Cadance and Twilight are not immortal. So what if no alicorn is? What if Celestia has not ruled for 1,000 years as is claimed, but only a few? And everything we were told about Discord and Nightmare Moon are false memories implanted into the minds of her subjects to make her appear as their savior.
He's not the Messiah! He's a very naughty boy!
What if Celestia isn't a kind and loving princess, but a dictator, clutching onto her throne with iron hooves while she controls the very minds of her population into complete obedience? Look at how common mind control magic is in Equestria. Isn't it at least possible? Isn't there the least chance that what I'm suggesting is right? That Celestia is... Celestia is a good and fair ruler. May her solar empire burn brighter and longer than the sun itself. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to see more. And as always...
Stay pony, my...